Good morning and welcome to the Fast Chat. I am Rochelle Butler, Energy Manager with the San Joaquin Valley Clean Energy Organization. Thank you so much for being with us on this very lovely Tuesday morning. We are going to get going momentarily, but first we're just going to take care of our housekeeping really quickly. Please make note that all of your microphones have been muted upon joining the call. This is simply to minimize background noise. If you have any questions at all, I highly encourage you, go ahead and submit your questions using the chat box. You may do so at any point during the presentation, and as always, we will save some time toward the end of the call to address those questions. Finally, I would like to invite everyone to connect with us. You can connect with us on any one of our many platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, or you can just reach out the old-fashioned way via email or by telephone. And don't worry if you didn't quite get all of that. Just remember you can access any of our resources by going to our website, and that's at sjvcleanenergy.org. Again, that is sjvcleanenergy.org. And without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So as I have stated before, we are kind of switching gears back to K through 12 schools. This month, we've been talking a lot about programs that benefit schools, which is really exciting that there are so many opportunities out there. In August, we had a really great discussion style fast chat where myself and a very special guest, Lou Jacobson, talked about innovative methods to get the most out of your ESSER funding. If you missed that fast chat, I encourage you to check it out. We will provide a link to that fast chat in our follow-up email later on today, so look out for that. But this morning we are going to focus on a program called CalSHAPE. So CalSHAPE is an acronym. It stands for California Schools Healthy Air, Plumbing, and Efficiency Program. It is a grant program which is administered by the California Energy Commission, or CEC for short, and its funding was actually authorized by Assembly Bill 841. So really, it's AB 841 with a snappy new name, I guess. So the purpose of the program is to, one, support efforts to replace aging and inefficient plumbing fixtures and appliances, and also to assess, maintain, and repair ventilation systems. And it accomplishes this. It's actually two programs under the umbrella of one, and the first program is the plumbing program, and the other one is the ventilation program. So I have some really important dates here that I want you to keep in mind. This might be the most important slide of the presentation this morning, but please note that these dates are applicable to funding round one of the program. There will be a total of 3 rounds of funding, and I'll get a little bit more into that in the next slide. But applications are being accepted right now for both. The plumbing program began accepting applications on August 31 of this year. The ventilation program began accepting applications on September 28th of this year. So the ventilation program just got off the ground, and correspondingly, the application deadlines are also about a month apart. The deadline for applications to the funding program is December 31 of this year, so the very last day of this year, and then for the ventilation program, the deadline is January 31. So you do have some time to get your applications together and get them submitted. Okay, so let's talk about the funding itself. So where exactly did this money come from? Well, AB 841 is largely responsible for CalSHAPE. AB 841 actually put into place the School Energy Efficiency Stimulus, or SEES for short, and within that program is CalSHAPE. Now, the actual funding was derived from the Gas and Electric Utility Energy Efficiency Rolling Portfolio Funds. So those are all the big gas and electric utilities, PG&E, Southern California Edison, Southern California Gas, and SDG&E. So if your local education agency is a customer of one of those utilities, you you are among the qualified potential applicants. So as I mentioned earlier, CalSHAPE will roll out in 3 funding cycles over the course of 3 years. So we're looking at 2021 through 2023. What you see on your screen here is a detailed estimation of the funding over the course of that 3-year program. So as you can see, it's broken out by utility service territory. It also outlines how the funding will be aggregated over the span of the program. Another thing to keep in mind is that roughly 75% of the funding is allocated toward ventilation projects. The remaining 25% of the funding is allocated toward plumbing projects. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, and very briefly, eligible applicants are called LEAs. That's just an acronym for local education agencies. Specifically, per the grant program, an LEA can be defined as one of the following. It can be the County Board of Education in your area, the County Superintendents of Schools. It can be a direct elementary or secondary level instructional services provided by the state. It can also be a charter school that has been granted a charter pursuant to the Education Code. And as far as the site, the actual sites upon which the projects are to be completed, those specific sites can be owned by an LEA. The site can also be publicly owned. For example, the site can be owned by a school district or another public entity, and the LEA does not have to have a lease with that entity. So for a publicly owned site, those stipulations are a little bit looser. And then the site can also be privately owned, but with privately owned sites, the LEA does have to have a lease term with the owner of that property. So, I'm sorry. There must be a lease agreement with the property owner, and the lease agreement must extend for the duration of the program. So for this program, the lease would have to extend at least until December 1 of 2026. Okay, some more eligibility requirements. So for this round 1 of funding, the name of the game is underserved communities. Underserved communities will receive priority eligibility through this program, particularly, as I said, in this first round. So if you are an underserved community, which a lot of our partners are in underserved areas, I highly encourage you to act on this grant opportunity as soon as possible. So the way that underserved communities are defined for the purposes of this grant, you can meet one of the following criteria. So you can be a disadvantaged community as defined by the Public Resources Code. You can be a low-income community as defined by the Health and Safety Code. If your area has a CalEnviroScreen score of 75 or higher, that would also qualify you. Or if 75% or more of the students in your education site are eligible for FRPM under the National School Lunch Program, that would also get you in. And then I don't believe that any of our partners fall into this category, but it's worth mentioning anyway. If the school is located on lands belonging to a federally recognized California Indian tribe, that would also be a qualifier. So next, we're going to get a little bit more into detail about the types of projects that would qualify for this program. And then finally, I'll talk a little bit about how to apply. So as far as qualified projects, as I mentioned earlier, there are 2 programs within CalSHAPE, the ventilation program and the plumbing program. However, within the ventilation program, there are 3 different pathways pertaining to the project type. So each site that is awarded grant funding can follow only one pathway. So just as a side note to what I just said, an LEA may actually submit up to 3 applications for program funds in each funding round. There is no restriction as to how many sites can be in each application. However, one site cannot be included in multiple applications. So the idea here really is to group your sites together according to the pathway that they fall under. Now, the first of the 3 pathways I'm going to talk about is the HVAC assessment and maintenance pathway. This pathway is for sites that have at least one HVAC system. HVAC system does have a specific definition under the guidelines of the program, and there are more details on that. I'm not going to get too much into that, but just to kind of give you an idea, if it has at least one HVAC system that is not scheduled for replacement within 2 years of the application submittal date. An HVAC system is deemed scheduled for replacement if the LEA can provide the supporting documentation to qualify for this pathway. So the program guidelines is very specific on the types of documentation that is required. Please keep in mind that the SJVCO we are a resource to help assist you through this process. Additionally, if you are in the Southern California Edison Service Territory, our partners, the SoCal REN team, they're also another excellent resource that'll help you through this application process. So just something to kind of keep in mind for you here. Now, the second of the 3 pathways is the scheduled for replacement pathway. And this pathway is for sites where all of the HVAC systems at the site are scheduled for replacement within 2 years of the application submittal date. Again, you will need supporting documentation, which is outlined in more detail in the guidelines. Finally, the third pathway is the limited or no mechanical ventilation pathway, in which a site does not have an HVAC system as outlined in the program guidelines. These sites would focus more on things like filters and CO2 detectors and things of that nature. So if it doesn't quite fit in the guidelines, chances are there is somewhere where your projects would fit into as it pertains to the program. So the second portion of the program, the plumbing program, now there isn't quote unquote specific pathways under the plumbing program. However, there are 2 kinds of projects that fit within this program, and they pertain to fixtures and appliances. Plumbing fixtures that exceed water usage levels as set forth in the civil code are considered non-compliant and therefore are eligible for replacement under this grant program. So what does that mean? We're talking about toilets that exceed 1.6 gallons per flush, urinals exceeding 1 gallon per flush, shower heads in excess of 2.5 gallons per minute, and also interior faucets exceeding 2.2 gallons per minute. Now, the appliances that they're looking for in terms of this program to replace would be appliances that are manufactured before January 1, 2010, and also that are not meeting Energy Star standards. So we're looking at things like commercial dishwashers, automatic commercial ice makers, and commercial clothes washers that would fit into that category. So now for the fun part. How do we apply? So there are 2 different processes for the plumbing and for the ventilation programs. However, in the interest of time, I'm going to just kind of talk through at a high level the general steps that apply to both. First off, CalSHAPE has an online system that manages both applications as well as the subsequent reporting. This site really seems like it's the lifeblood of the program. So you'll want to register for an account as soon as possible to kind of get you started in that process. Secondly, I would like for you to keep in mind, they request a lot of really detailed information to complete this application. So the idea is for the project to already have been assessed and scoped out prior to applying for the funding. So it'd be a really good idea to work with a contractor or even a trade pro to scope out the project. They would provide you with a detailed quote of the time and the materials required to complete the project. These estimates need to be as detailed and as close as possible to the anticipated project costs, because that would bolster your application. For example, if you are looking to replace an HVAC unit or several HVAC units, the application will ask for example, nameplate information of the existing units, as well as information pertaining to the replacement units. All applications will be accepted online. Paper applications will not be accepted. However, there are a lot of step-by-step video tutorials and guidelines that will help you through the technical aspects of submitting an application, and we'll be sure to provide you with links to all of that information in our follow-up email after the call. And now, for the question portion of our time together, I do want to give y'all a couple of seconds to submit any questions you might have about the presentation this morning. We don't generally get a whole lot of questions, so what I did was I prepared a couple of questions to kind of talk through this morning. Hopefully that'll kind of jog some things loose for you, or help you kind of think about something that you might be wanting to ask. So I'll go ahead and just dive into that. The first question, or FAQ, if you will, is there a minimum or a maximum for the amount of award for each application? So I wasn't able to find a minimum in my research. However, I did find some maximums. And I see a question coming through, and I'm going to get to that question. I'm going to talk through this part, and then I'll get to your question in just a second. I'm going to just talk through the maximums really quickly. So an example of one of the maximums that I did find was that there is a funding limit on Pathway 1, the HVAC assessment and maintenance and completion of the HVAC assessment report for Pathway 1. That limit is $10,000 plus $1,000 per each additional HVAC system unit. The modified assessment and completion of the HVAC assessment report for Pathway 3 has a limit of $4,000, and the HVAC assessment report for Pathway 2 has a funding limit of $2,000. So it is kind of, what it seems like is they kind of want to keep those administration costs down a little bit. There's also a limit for the purchase and installation of filter replacements. That is $75. And then for the installation and purchase of CO2 monitors in each classroom, that has a limit of $600. So just something to keep in mind. I did see a question pop up here, so I am going to, who is this question from? Oh, this is from Pam. Pam, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, sure. So in the case if a school doesn't currently have HVAC systems, or I guess it would be more like just, on the air side, on the air conditioning side, because they haven't really needed them in the past. Is that something that they would be eligible to add on to, or? Oh,
you mean to get a new HVAC system where there wasn't one pre-existing?
Exactly.
That's a really good question. All of the information that I have seen is for replacement of existing information, or the replacement of existing systems. So I'm not going to say that's set in stone, but I will do a little bit of research after the call and send out an official response if that works for you, Pam.
Okay, that'd be great. Just because some of our region doesn't really need air conditioning generally, although now that it's getting warmer, and then with so much smoke, wildfire smoke, that's becoming much bigger of an issue.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with that. That's an excellent question, though. That's one I hadn't thought of. Thank you for that, Pam.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Not a problem. I'll follow up on that. Okay, and I'll just, let's see if I have anything else in here. I'll just do one more because I think it is a really important piece of information that I didn't mention during my presentation is how long after you've received notice of award would you have to complete the project? And so I'll just read this. This is directly from the guidelines. Grant recipients will have 24 months to complete all assessment and maintenance grant work and final reporting requirements. Although the CEC may issue a reminder of the project deadline, it is the recipient's responsibility to monitor project completion and meet all required reporting and invoicing deadlines. I know that was a mouthful, so just the thing to keep in mind is 24 months, okay? Okay, well, we are at time. I'm gonna go ahead and close this out. What's next for the Fund It Fast Chat? We do have another bonus Fast Chat for you in 2 weeks. This is a continuation of the bonus Fast Chat we did last month, where we talked about the low and no cost lighting solutions through the PG&E K-12 program, which is administered by Willdan. On October 26th, we'll do a deep dive discussion about the comprehensive project opportunities through that same program. So don't miss it. We also have Fast Chat on the calendar for November 9th and December 14th. We will be announcing those topics in the next couple of days. I'm just waiting on confirmation for a couple of items before I release the topic. So stay tuned for that information, and I hope to see everyone at all of them. And thank you again for joining us this morning, and I hope everyone has a wonderful week, and I hope you all stay safe and stay healthy.